Super Duper Computer Store. How may I help you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm setting up an office in my den. I'm thinking about buying a computer.
Mac?
No, the name's Lou.
Your computer?
I don't own a computer. I want to buy one.
Mac?
I told you my name's Lou.
What about Windows?
Why? Will it get stuffy in here?
Do you want a computer with Windows?
I don't know. What will I see when I get them?
Wallpaper?
Never mind about the windows. I need a computer and software.
Software for Windows?
No, on the computer. I need something to write proposals, track expenses, and run my business. What have you got?
Office.
Yeah, for my office. Can you recommend anything?
I just did.
You just did what?
Recommend something.
You recommended something?
Yes.
For my office.
Yes.
Okay, what did you recommend for my office?
Office.
Yes, for my office.
I can recommend Office for Windows.
I already have an office with Windows. Let's just say I'm sitting at my computer and I want to type a proposal. What do I need?
Word.
What word?
The word in Office for Windows.
Which word in Office for Windows?
The word you get when you click the blue W on the keyboard.
I'm going to click your blue W if I don't get some straight answers. Okay, forget it. No, sorry. Can I watch movies on the internet?
Yes, you want real one.
Maybe a real one, maybe a cartoon. What I watch is none of your business. Just tell me what I need.
No, real one.
Look, if it's a long movie, I also want to see reel 2, 3, and 4. Can I watch them?
Of course.
Great, with what?
Real one.
Okay, I'm at my computer, and I want to watch a movie. What do I do?
You click the blue one.
I click the blue one, what?
The blue one.
Is that different than the blue W?
The blue one is real one, and the blue W is Word.
What word?
The word in Office for Windows.
But there's 3 words in Office for Windows.
No, just one, but it's the most popular word in the world.
It is?
Yes, but to be fair, there aren't many other words left. It pretty much wiped out the other words.
And what word is real one?
Real one has nothing to do with Word. Real one isn't even part of Office.
Stop. Don't start that again. Just send me the computer and the software I need. Right away, thanks.
Oh.
Welcome to Career Solutions with David Rawls, your guide to improving the quality of your career. David will share tips for career success, faith-based tips for locating, landing jobs, and succeeding at your work. Join your host, David Rawls, who brings more than 30 years' experience working for GTE and Disney, as he helps you with your career solutions.
Good evening, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed that little skit. We had so much fun putting that together, producing that, particularly with the 2 gentlemen who acted in that, Steve and Ralph. They both did a fantastic job of displaying how sometimes communications between 2 people can get absolutely nowhere. And I can tell you, having sat in thousands and thousands of interviews with job candidates, I've sat in many interviews that sort of emulated that kind of discussion. So I thought it was a great way to start tonight's session, which is all about interviews. And tonight is the 3rd week on interviews in this 12-week curriculum that we have. Tonight's about practice interviewing. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to all have a chance to practice our interviews. Now, I know that starts to stir up some emotions in the pits of some of your stomachs. It always does. But I'd rather stir up the emotions here and have you get through some of the nervousness of that now than have to fight through that when you're in a real live interview. As a matter of fact, you'll hear me say this at the end of the session. What we're going to demonstrate this evening, my recommendation is that you do this 2 to 3 times a week with different people each and every time. So 3 people this week, 2 or 3 people next week, 2 or 3 different people the following week, and so on. And as you do that, you'll get more and more comfortable going through the process so that when you sit down with those real employers in those real live interview circumstances, you'll feel much more confident about your performance, much more confident about what you need to say, but even more particularly, the way you need to say it. Because it's not always just the words, but it's the way we deliver them. Now, we're going to demonstrate this. Tonight, what we're going to do in our practice interviewing, our agenda, I think, is pretty darn full, but we're going to sort of role play this. There's going to be a general session, which is what I call this first. We're going to demonstrate for all of you basically what we're going to ask all of you to do after we get done with the demonstration. Our first session is going to take about 22 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to do an interview after we get this set up, and I'm talking, this is my 2-minute setup now. We're going to get this set up. We're going to explain what the roles are, and then we're going to have a 12-minute interview. And I'm going to ask Blake, and I'll introduce Blake in just a second. I'm going to ask him to time this as close as he can to 12 minutes. At the end of 12 minutes, we're going to stop right in the middle of where we are, and then Blake and I will provide some feedback to Karen, who's our job seeker, our candidate tonight, playing the role of that. And then so in about 22 minutes, we can get through this process, and we're going to end up debriefing this process for each of you. Then we're going to break into small groups. Each of you in the audience, we're going to break into small groups of 3 people each. I'm going to encourage you to break up into groups of 3 people with people that you don't know or know well. If you came with somebody, go to somebody else. This is about getting over, partly it's about getting over speaking to people that you don't know well, or speaking to strangers, if you will. So I want to encourage you to do that. When we do that, we'll break up and we'll go into various parts of the room so you guys can spread out a little bit, and you'll do the same 22-minute exercise 3 times. Each of you will play all 3 roles. First, one of you will play the role of the person being interviewed. Somebody else gets to be the interviewer and ask the questions like I'm going to do. And the third person will be the evaluator and the timekeeper, keeping track that it doesn't go over 22 minutes. Then we'll revolve the roles, and you'll all go through the same thing again, and then we'll revolve the roles, and you'll go through the same thing again. Now, I'm even providing for you evaluation sheets. I'll point those out for you in a little bit, and I'm even providing for you interview questions so that when you play the role of the interviewer, you don't have to think up what you want to ask. I'm going to give you the questions to ask, and we're going to ask you guys, as those being interviewed, to do your best to try and answer a typical sample of the kinds of questions that you can get in a typical employment interview. And then we'll at the end, of course, we'll provide some time for Q&A, and we'll sort of debrief the process, talk about some of the things you learned, some of the things you hope to learn, maybe some of the things you didn't learn about the process, the interviewing process, and maybe even more specifically about yourself and your own capabilities or inabilities at this point. So let's get right to this general session, and this general session is going to consist of 3 of us playing those roles. I want to introduce my guests for this session. First, I'd like to introduce to my far left, Karen West. Karen is a graduate of the Career Solutions program a few years ago. She went through 12, how many weeks did you go through, Karen?
12, and then I started repeating.
Okay, so 12 plus some, and then she finally landed her job. Karen is I would say she's an average job seeker. I mean, she's certainly an above average person, but she's an average job seeker in terms of what she knew when she came into the program and the things that she had to struggle with in putting her resume together and preparing for interviews. What, am I mischaracterizing? You hadn't interviewed a lot, had you?
No, in fact, I was convinced that I was not qualified, that I was out of
As I
training.
remember, Karen didn't have a lot of self-confidence when you first came in the program.
Right. That's exactly
and
right.
now she's really good. My second guest is Blake McMillan, and Blake is, the reason I wanted to have him in this session tonight, Blake is a consummate interviewing person. He teaches seminars on behavioral interviewing. As a matter of fact, I think if you stick around till the end of this evening, we'll tell you where you can catch Blake at other times where he might be providing some training for people in this area. So we'll announce that after we get off camera. So Blake McMillan, Karen West are going to be a part of this role play. And when I sit down, we're actually going to start the role play. And when I sit down, Blake, you can start your little clock and you keep track of, we'll figure we finish the 2 minutes and we'll do the 12-minute interview and the 8-minute critique. All right. Hi, I'm David Rawls.
I'm Karen West. So
Please
nice
sit
to
down,
meet
Karen.
you.
So
Thank you,
nice to
David.
meet you. Thank you for being here.
Very happy to be
I've been really excited about this interview ever since we set it up. Did you have any trouble finding us?
No, not at all. Your directions were excellent. Thank you.
Well, good. I do my best to confuse people, and not always intentionally. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Karen.
Well, I'm pretty much a Hurstonian. I've been here for all of my life, and I grew up through the local school district. Got married to a high school sweetheart, had children who all go to schools here. They're all grown now. And I began my work career in 1990, started an insurance company, and worked my way up from mail and file to actually processing claims, auto claims. And was in the insurance business for 15 years, and then I tried to begin working for a ministry, a local ministry, and that position was not available. And then I started working for an architect firm, and I did that for the last 5.5 years, doing that currently.
Okay, good. Now, you've applied for a position here as an administrative assistant.
Yes, sir.
What qualifies you to be an admin assistant?
Well, I have a lot of experience regarding meeting needs. I derive a great deal of satisfaction in anticipating needs. And then if I do not have the skill set to meet those needs, then I desire to learn whatever I need to learn, if it's a computer program that I need to learn or a procedure that I'm not aware of, then I will do what I need to do to be able then to meet that need for your organization.
Okay. Have you ever had a boss that wasn't just the greatest boss in the world?
Well, yes, and I've not been the greatest employee either.
Yeah, describe for me, without naming the boss, we'll get to your specific employment in a bit, but without naming the boss specifically, describe for me, if you would, all the bad things about the worst boss you ever had.
Well, may I do a consummate of different bosses. And I would say that the most difficult boss is one that is not aware of their own needs or what they need to have in place to be able to be successful. And then that makes it difficult for me then to be able to interpret what I need to do to help them and help their team. And I would say that overall, because it's not just that person that's being affected, it's the whole team. If they're not aware, if they don't have their own goals, if they're not aware of what they need.
Did you ever have a boss that you hoped would either they would change jobs or you hoped you could change a job just because of the relationship?
Knowing my weaknesses, every boss that I've had, I have taken a look at them and then I've looked at myself and learned from what their weaknesses were, seen that in my own self, and then just tried to help them with that weakness.
Ever been fired?
I have not.
Okay, good for you. Let me ask you this. Where do you think your career is headed long term? I mean, what are you thinking you might want to be doing 15, 20, 30 years from now?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking it. I hope to continue with an organization beginning with, if it's an entry level, an administrative assistant working for a manager. I am now in a position where I can go back to school and I can increase my knowledge on programming. I would like to expand my skill set, and where that takes me in that corporation, I'm happy to go there just to meet those needs.
What gives you the most joy in a job?
Anticipating that need and meeting that need, even without being told.
Tell me a time when you anticipated a need and you were actually able to satisfy the need of either a group of people, a customer, or a boss, and what you went to do to satisfy that.
I was given instructions recently to get an invoice prepared because it had not been delivered to a customer. When I pulled that invoice, it actually was in error. So I had to track down where that invoice originated. And then I had to make sure that with finance that invoice was negated and then a new invoice was created, and then get that invoice to the person that was actually visiting our company at the time before they left. And that was within about 2-hour time.
Okay, good. Give me just what you think might be your greatest strength.
My greatest strength is patience and the desire to assist and build up my team members and my manager.
Okay, give me a specific time when you had to exercise all the patience that you had within you.
Mostly with myself.
Give me an exact example.
An example would be beginning a new job, beginning a new task. The lack of information, there is going to be a gap, and I do tend to be hard on myself. And so having that patience to recognize that it's just a matter of gaining the experience, gaining the exposure that I need to be able to fulfill the expectation.
If we were to ask all of your bosses about Karen and sort of got a conglomerate input, what do you think would be the consensus in terms of the greatest need that you have in terms of your development?
I believe probably the greatest need would be a technological need. The last 5 years that I was with the architecture firm, I did not have that opportunity, and it was a very busy time with my family. I had several sons in college, and that is probably the greatest need that I have.
Okay, now, and you said you're getting ready to address that in part?
Correct, yes, sir.
With some education. Okay, good. Tell me about your biggest flop, your biggest failure, that time you stepped on a bomb and it went off.
Well, that would probably be when I was instructed to go and get writing a piece to our manager. And I wound up printing the wrong piece, handing it to her. It caused her then to go back to our writing development team and question them because she thought that they were in error, and it was actually my error, and it cost probably 30 minutes of her time.
Okay, and so what do you take away from that? What's the big learning for you in this?
In an effort to be able to meet those needs and get something ready for my manager or whoever is asking me, I want to be sure that I am paying attention to detail and I don't miss those very easy to miss steps.
What's the one question that you hope I don't ask?
I don't have an answer for that.
What's the one thing that you would prefer not to reveal about yourself?
Probably that the one thing that I would have difficulty in revealing about myself that I'm revealing to you right now is that I'm an overachiever, and that can get me in trouble. I can take on too much at one time, and then the team does suffer because I haven't completed the task that maybe was expected at the first, the priority task.
Overachievers suffer from this two-edged sword. They're often thought of as the go-to person to get things done. I've heard it said by leaders and bosses for many, many years. Find the busiest person in your organization, and they're probably the person that you should ask to take on the next assignment because they'll figure out a way to get it done. Describe a time for me, if you would, when you took on that task and just couldn't get it done. It was just one straw too many.
I had a project deadline, and I had everything in place to complete that project. I had not followed up with a key individual to find out if the information that they had said that they were going to get me was going to indeed come in time. At the same time, there was a smaller project that had just come up, and I wound up paying attention to that. I did not follow up with the person that was going to get me that information. They did not have it for me in time, and so therefore I was not able to complete the project that was expected at that time, the bigger project.
Let me ask you this real quick. Do you have any questions for me at all?
Yes, I do. What is the biggest challenge that your organization is facing right now?
Well, we don't have enough employees. We have we have about 20 million things to get done and enough people to accomplish about 7 or 8. So we need some employees that can help us take on the vast workload that we have. And we need people that can prioritize through all this stuff. There are so many things to do. We can't possibly do it all. And so we have to decide what's the most critical today. Tomorrow, what bubbles up to be more critical could actually even change. And so it's about moving the right balls down the right field at the right time, because we're playing on about 10 or 12 different fields right now. It makes it very challenging for all of us. It really is that juggler who can juggle 3 balls, they can juggle 6 balls, they can even juggle 10 balls, but you give them 29 to juggle and balls start hitting the floor.
Yes.
And we're kind of at that point. So that's probably the biggest challenge right now, is just the heavy workload and then the ability to prioritize. Great question.
It sounds like it's a good challenge in that you're in a period of growth. What is your management style? How would you delegate those tasks so that those balls would not get dropped?
Well, here's one of the things that I like to do, and I say this only part humorously. I like to lay all the balls up on the table and say to people like yourself, take your pick. It doesn't matter to me what you would like to do. I don't have a specific, I don't say take these 10 or these 4. Because there's so many things to do, let's kind of decide jointly what you'd like to do. Make sure that that's a high priority jointly. Because I think if you choose the things that you're most happy at doing, the things that you get most the joy from doing, that you're best at, that you're comfortable doing and doing well, and yet they're a stretch, they help you grow, they help you learn, I think that's where you perform the best, and I think that's where our organization can benefit the best.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, good. Let me ask you another question. Of all the people that have watched you work, what are you most complimented about?
I'm an encourager. I'm a good first welcome. I like to ensure that whether it's on the phone and it's in person, that person that I'm greeting knows that they are welcome, that they're at home. If there's anything that they need that I can do for them, that I'm able to do that. I also like to encourage team building so that we are cohesive as a team.
Describe a time when you were on a team that had a significant...
At our 12-minute mark.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Blake. All right, we finished 12 minutes, so we've got 8 minutes now, so Blake, we're going to have to watch the clock and provide Karen some feedback, and I'll let you open up because I know you were taking a lot of good notes.
Sure. So the first thing I noticed is on the form and style, Karen did amazing. As far as a first impression, your interest, enthusiasm, energy, voice volume and tone, body language, you were leaning forward, you looked like you were engaged. So I had nothing but super for those. In fact, I even gave her a double super for ease of conversation and poise, because you dodged the super evil question of what question don't you want me to ask you? Because that's a tough question.
I tried to trap her, and she just wouldn't be trapped.
Yeah, she was very smooth through that and didn't panic. And so I had to give you double super for your poise on that.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I think some of the things that I liked was the constant eye contact. It wasn't like you were staring through me. I didn't feel any of that going on. But you were able to look away, look back. It was very natural, very comfortable. You continue to smile. And it just shows a level of interest and a level of comfortability. Were you nervous during this?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
Well, we couldn't see it.
Yeah, it does not show. And I think almost everybody that's interviewed is nervous, but the fact that you can maintain some poise and some eye contact, sometimes you have to concentrate on
Yes.
the physicality of your environment.
Yes.
And even while you're talking, you have to be able to think about the hand gestures you're moving and the head nodding and the words that you're choosing while you're trying to smile and do all the other stuff too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
good job.
Thank you.
I would say in the form and style, very, very good. What did you think of her little 2-minute elevator speech, her answer to my question, tell me about yourself? Tell me what you thought about that.
Okay, so I put that one as okay. And the reason I put that one as okay is there was a lot of personal. It was a long personal leadoff.
Yes.
And not right into
Work
sort of the pertinent stuff for the job. And then when we got into the job section, I didn't hear any wow moments. And so I think what I would have liked here in that 2-minute drill was maybe less of the personal, because, you know, not that it's not wonderful that you're married and you have the kids, but
Yes.
I would have focused more on like business topics and then talked about some of your highlights. And then also what I would have liked to seen is as soon as you ended that, ask that question.
Yeah, well, just two quick things that I observed is there wasn't enough to perhaps echo what you said. There wasn't enough about the meaty accomplishments that you had during your work history. You talked a little bit about responsibility, but you didn't really get into you solved this, you created this, you built this, you supervised this, you teamed up with this. So that was the first hole. And then I was expecting a question at the end of your 2-minute drill, and there wasn't one.
Yes.
And that was, and quite frankly, the reason I expected is I know you brought written down questions. So
I did.
I thought you were in a questioning mode, and I didn't hear that. So how about well, I didn't ask any of the salary questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to that. How about staying in my frame of reference and doing well dealing with my needs? Do you think she did a pretty good job with that?
So I
As an
put,
employer?
she definitely did great, and that this was the double super on poise about how you handled some of the more pointed, jagged questions that Dave threw at you. But I actually put an okay here, and the reason why is he asked you a number of behavioral questions, and then on those behavioral questions, I didn't hear the clear structure that I'm looking for an answer. And in fact, he asked you one that was, tell me about a time when you anticipated someone else's needs. And you didn't talk about a specific time, you talked in generalities. And so that's the section that I wanted to kind of capture that feedback on.
And oftentimes that'll come from preparation or lack thereof.
Yes.
You need to anticipate getting questions like this.
Yes.
And you need to be thinking through, I think you'd agree with this, Blake, you need to be thinking through the examples of anticipating someone's need, working in a team, greatest accomplishment example, those kinds of things, so you can tell this is all about storytelling.
Right.
Yes.
And you need to be able to tell that story of what went on in that particular circumstance or situation.
And especially because you led into it with what are your strengths? And then when you said, here's my strengths, great, now it's story time.
Yes.
Tell me
Yeah.
about when you use that strength.
Yeah, prove it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why that follow-on question will come.
Yes.
Everybody will tell you about they're a great communicator, they're a people person, all the euphemisms that we hear all the time. Now we need to hear example. Tell me when you were a great people person.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Who'd you slap around lately? Yeah, okay.
Now, on that slapping around note,
Yeah.
she did a great job of not going there with the negative, because you kept probing, you kept scratching, and what I saw her do that I thought was very skillful was that she instead said, hey, we've all got negative things about us, and what I tried to do is whenever I thought something was negative, I tried to internalize, well, how could I change? Which I thought was a very, very mature answer, and I
Very
liked it.
mature answer. Excellent answer.
Thank you.
One of the best ways to handle that question. You don't want to say there wasn't a time, because
Correct.
we all have those times.
Right.
But I thought it was a very positive response.
Because we're not supposed to lie. There is going to be those times.
Amen.
Amen.
We all
sister.
experience it. That's right. Did she ask me enough questions?
Well, we were short on time. She asked you questions.
Not until I prompted her.
Right. But when what I
I wanted
did,
to make sure she had questions that she was ready to ask, and she was prepared to ask
Right.
them.
And she
But
launched right into a good
I
one.
thought you might have inserted them a bit sooner. We needed one after the 2-minute drill,
Yes.
and
Right.
then maybe about 3-4 minutes in, sprinkle in the next one, and
Yes.
so on. So my advice, I know you have them written down because I saw them
do.
earlier, so I want to encourage you, when you sit down in an interview, you sit down with your portfolio and open it up. So you've got a
yeah.
visual reminder. And while the interviewer is talking, there's nothing wrong at all with jotting a note here and a note there so that you're ready to respond with those questions.
no, I think that's a good point. And looking back on it, I see where she should have, when she answered your question, led in with a
Yes.
question. But what I did think you did well, though, is when he finally started trying to pull one out of you, you asked a great one right off the bat, which was what's your greatest challenge? And then I felt like you responded to what he said, and then you had another one chambered and ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I mean, the question would be, obviously, it's hard to make up your mind in a 12-minute interview, but if the interview continued like that, you would be back for the next, here's my positive feedback, you would be back for the next step.
Okay.
Right.
Now, we don't know who your competition would be, but I thought you did on average, or in terms of all the people that I've talked to in a first interview, and this is the first time we've ever interviewed, so I've never
That's
seen
right.
your interview style. I think you did very, very good.
Thank you.
Would you agree?
I would. All the supers except for the little minors. I didn't have any on here that I thought like, oh, she really needs
Yeah,
help.
yeah.
And we are at our 8 minutes.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you for this
Karen.
opportunity so
no,
much.
Thank you. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you, Brad.
Good job. Good job. Thank you, guys. Yeah, let's thank them again, if we may. Okay, hopefully what we've done is we've set the example for you. Now, before we break up into groups, and I'm pausing a second because we're going to edit right at this spot. I'm going to jump to the end so we can get this on video, because the interviewing that you're doing, we're not going to videotape. If that takes any pressure off, that's a good thing, okay? We're going to stop the cameras. So what I want to do is I want to go to the conclusion of the evening, if I may. So this is the debrief after you're done interviewing. After we're all done interviewing, this is how I would end the evening. And I need some noise when I talk about this, and some nodding of heads. Again, we don't have your microphone, but you are on the cameras again. And so as I ask a few questions, I'd like an exaggerated nods or whatever, some smiles or whatever, because the camera, believe it or not, is no going to sleep now. Wake up. Warren? Okay. So let's go into our concluding remarks. So let me get to my right slide here. We'll come back to this one. Okay, by a show of hands, I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to practice your interviewing skills. The thing I love about the practice interviewing, when we break into these groups of three, and I realize these are the beginners, interviewing the beginners and evaluating the beginners. We understand that, which is why we've given you the evaluation sheets with some specific questions to ask your candidates, and then some specific points in which you can evaluate them. But going through the process enables you to learn on three levels. First, you learn by virtue of the fact that you've been interviewed. You're sitting on the hot seat. You're hearing some of these questions perhaps for the first time. As you probably noticed in the interview, there's 3 rounds of questions. So if you're the first one doing the interviewing, you're asking a set of questions. The second person in your group is getting a different set of questions. So they all touch on the same subjects, but the questions are all a little bit different, asking for a little bit different approach to similar subject matter. So you learn being interviewed. You also learn being the interviewer. Now you're seeing somebody else respond to a similar circumstance, and you learn by observing how they're responding to your questions. And when you're playing the interviewer role, as you were, you're not only asking the questions, you've got them in front of you, but now you're making the eye contact while they're struggling, trying to put their words together. You're evaluating the difficulty and the challenges of doing that, and how you might even better prepare for some of the answers that you know you gave or will be giving. And then the third role, when you're the evaluator, when you're the timekeeper evaluator, you're watching the interviewer, as Blake was doing. You're watching the interviewer, and then you're watching the person who's doing the responding, the job seeker, the candidate. And so you're learning on a totally different level again, because now you're like a fly on the wall, sitting there quietly watching this interchange going back and forth, side to side. And so there's a learning difference taking place in each one of those roles, and that's why we have everybody play all three of the roles. So my question is, as you went through this, how many found this, by either a nod or a show of hands, how many people found this helpful? Oh, okay, good, good. I mean, and that happens every time. We know people benefit from this. So let me ask the next question then. How many of you think that you might actually try doing this more than once? You might try doing this maybe this week or next week or some other week and probably get a regular habit of doing this. All right, good. Because I want to encourage that. As I said at the beginning, I'd like to think that you might try doing this 2 to 3 times a week. As you're making your networking connections that we learned how to do in session 7, and you're meeting with new people, occasionally you're going to bump into just the right kind of person. You hit it off with them and just say, hey, I've got some interview questions here. Would you mind taking 12 minutes and I'll time it if you want to, and just ask me these questions, and then if you wouldn't mind giving me some feedback, tell me how well you think I do in answering the questions. And if you're having different people do it, they don't know that you're repeating your answers and refining your answers and getting better at these answers each time. And the first time you meet with somebody, have them give you questions out of round 1. You meet with somebody else that week, have them give you questions out of round 2. And then questions out of round 3. So 3 interviews in a row, you're getting a little bit different sampling of questions, which again helps in the broadening and the deepening of your preparation. So my next question is, and I know you can't answer this is a rhetorical question, but I hope you'll think about this. When are you going to plan your next practice interview? I hope it's soon. I hope that it's while this is fresh. I hope it's while this is perhaps something that you see a great level of import for. I hope that you're not doing your practice interviewing in front of real live employers. And some of your best potential jobs, perhaps, are in some of these first interviews, some of these first employers that you're making connections with. If you're targeting your best companies first, wouldn't it be a shame to burn those opportunities because you weren't really ready to give a powerful, impacting interview response to the questions that you know you're going to get? That's my whole purpose in having us go through this session. I know very few people like Karen who find this a fun experience, especially the first time. Now, Karen went through this and when she went through our workshop before, so she knew a little bit about what to expect tonight. And I want to encourage you to just keep practicing. The first time you do it, it's going to be nerve-wracking, and that's going to be tonight. The next time you go through it, if you haven't done it yet, it's going to be a little bit less, and then a little bit less. And it's like anything, whether it's learning how to turn on your computer and boot it up and upload something or download something. First time you do it, you make a lot of mistakes, and it takes forever. And you get better and better and better at it. So I want to be an encouragement to you in that regard. When will you, this is the ending question, when will you provide an opportunity to be interviewed again? I hope you do it soon. All right, next week, we'll conclude tonight's session by saying next week, you're going to have an opportunity to learn about job offer negotiations. Now remember, I didn't say salary negotiations, because job offers are much more than just salary. Oh, we're going to talk a lot about salary because I know it's a critical element for all of us in our job. But we're going to talk about benefits and all the working conditions that go into our jobs. And I'll say this now, and hopefully I'll reinforce it when we go through this session in full. This is about being prepared in advance, knowing full well that I'm going to say 99 out of 100, maybe it's 999 out of 1,000 times you get a job offer, there is something to negotiate. Many of you have never negotiated a job offer. Some of you have worked to the point in your job search where you're ready to take the first offer that comes along because you finally found someone. Thank God you found someone who's willing to pay you to do something. And it's been so long since you got a paycheck, you're willing to do anything for any amount. Number one, I don't recommend that you settle. And number two, even if it's not about pay, there's probably something else going on in the job offer, and you'll see several examples of that in our next session. We're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the salary, the job compensation directly, but some other aspects of the job. All the things that are potentially surrounding that job are all open for discussion. Now, my best definition is a biblical one, and I'll cite the resource, the source verse for you next week. It's in Isaiah, and it's the best definition, biblical definition of good negotiations that I know of is, come now, let us reason together. And that's all good negotiations is. It's exploring alternatives. Nobody's holding a gun to anybody's head. It's not about win-lose. Good negotiations is always win-win. You end up better off, the employer ends up better off, everybody's much happier in the process. That's what good negotiations should always be. Okay, let me close in prayer and we'll go home for the session. Thank you. Father, thank you so much for each and every one of these that have come tonight. Come to session number 10 as we've talked about and practiced our interviewing skills. Just give us the fortitude, Father, as we go forward. Give us the confidence that we might go out and schedule these with friends, with strangers, with our networking connections, with family members, that we might ask people to ask us the questions that we know we're going to be asked about in our previous jobs. Questions that we're going to be asked about what we hope and strive for in the future, the compensation that we want, the kinds of relationships that we've had and the relationships that we want from a new boss, and all the other questions that we're going to be asked. Father, give us the strength to prepare for those, the courage to ask for help in preparing for those, and then give us the fortitude and give us just enough of a nudge, Lord, so that we make that happen. We thank you for what you've given us, Father. We thank you for all the privilege that you've given us to learn this stuff. Help us now to apply it and make it part of our job search technique. And we ask this in the powerful name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you very much.